Will Trump's tariffs reshape ASEAN's future? 1st of August arrived and the White House has announced revised tariffs on all countries, including members of ASEAN. So Malaysia, Thailand, Cambodia, Indonesia now face 19% tariffs. Prime Minister Anwar Ibrahim also reported in the parliament yesterday that President Donald Trump would also attend the ASEAN Summit in October this year. President Donald Trump is not a man who travels for diplomatic niceties. So if he really is coming, then he has a strategy. In this video, I shall unpack what I believe are 5 strategic messages that Trump's tariffs are intended for, and what might ASEAN want to do before President Donald Trump lands in Kuala Lumpur in October. I am Dr. Ilango Karupanan, former Malaysian ambassador with over 30 years of experience in the Malaysian Foreign Service. I've sat through countless ASEAN meetings, including many summits, and I would like to think of myself as a bit of an expert on ASEAN matters. Trump's tariffs are anything but technical in nature. They carry strategic weight. And more than anything else, I think these messages are intended for ASEAN. It shows that ASEAN is somewhere right smack in the middle of an evolving US global strategy. And therefore, it is important for ASEAN to react to these messages very carefully. And in this video, let me unpack 5 strategic messages that are being conveyed by these tariffs. Strategic message number 1, this is not just about tariff. It is about control. But the way that Mr. Trump is using tariffs, clearly they are not intended to be just mere economic instruments. It is actually a strategy. He's not just talking about making America great again. He is actually redrawing the global economic map. Tariffs are now being used as some kind of a geopolitical filter. Who's a partner? Who's a friend? Who's in? Who's out? And these numbers that we are seeing now today, they reveal a certain pattern, an image, if you will. And that image leads to the second strategic message, which is ASEAN is being nudged, not being forced. Let me explain what I mean by that. Let us look at the numbers. Malaysia, Thailand, Cambodia, Indonesia, all 19%. Vietnam, 20%. And of course, we have the outliers, which is Singapore, 10% announced earlier, and Laos and Myanmar, 40%. So the median tariffs, insofar as the ASEAN is concerned, is 19%. This to me is a calibrated move. It is not meant to be punitive. ASEAN is not being isolated, but neither is it being let off the hook. And the way I see it, well, Mr. Trump is sending a message. And the message is, you're not the enemy, but you're not off the hook either. And that brings us to the third strategic message, which is ASEAN's middle tier position is intended as a strategic window for it to act. When you look at all the tariffs collectively and you compare them, an interesting picture is emerging here. You find that on the higher end, countries like China and Brazil with well over 50% tariffs, and then comes countries like India, now facing 25%. ASEAN is somewhere in the middle with about 19%. Below that comes the EU. You see that clearly ASEAN is put right smack in the middle of this range of tariffs that have now been announced. So as I interpret these tariffs, ASEAN is not being signaled as a problem, but the tariffs also signifies that it is not completely favored either. And I think it tells us something even more important, that ASEAN is being seen by Washington as an important component of its global supply chain, but ASEAN is being asked to take sides. So this is pressure without punishment. It is a kind of nudge, a soft push, not a kick in the shin. And that brings us to the fourth strategic message, and that message is, what should ASEAN do? When I look at the tariffs, I see a kind of opportunity. Because now several countries are now slapped with same tariffs, which is 19%, Vietnam 20%. So the median is about 19%. So I think there is a possibility, a greater possibility now for ASEAN to actually coordinate their messaging, or maybe even address this issue as a bloc. Yes, I know what you're thinking. Singapore with 10% tariffs may not be terribly interested to join in to speak as a bloc. That's true, but on the other hand, I think Singapore also understands the importance of keeping Southeast Asia and ASEAN as an economically competitive region, because its own interest depends on that as well. So I think there is more reason for the grouping to talk collectively rather than not to do so. Ironically, Trump's blunt measure of applying tariffs may actually force all member countries to get together. And that brings me to the fifth strategic message, that is, the window to influence Trump is a small one, and it could be closing fast. Trump's visit in October changes everything. For once, ASEAN has an opportunity to get ahead of the US policy and not just simply react to it. If ASEAN is able to forge a common position on these tariffs, well, there is a possibility of raising this issue when Trump arrives. I'm not so sure if the White House will reduce the tariffs, but at least there is an opportunity to shape future trade frameworks. Good news, if you will, it is that ASEAN is not being punished like China. But on the other hand, it is also not being sheltered or given preference. It has to adapt. It has to adapt fast. And let us be really clear. President Donald Trump is not known for symbolic gestures. He has no time for diplomatic niceties. If he is coming to the ASEAN Summit in October, it means that either he wants a deal or to make a point. As I said, ASEAN now has two choices. The first choice is to show up disunited. And if we do that, well, we have only ourselves to blame. We will allow Mr. Donald Trump to play by his rule books, deal with all members bilaterally, and we shall see the consequences of that. The second option is to show up united, have a common position, a common message. And that message should be that ASEAN is not just only a friend of the United States. We are also important to the US, but also important to remember that ASEAN is more than the sum of its parts. So, the tariffs were the warning shot. Trump's visit, that's the real showdown. If you found this video helpful, I would encourage you to watch my latest video, which is about ASEAN's new enemy. The link is somewhere down there. For this video, as usual, please hit the like button, share, subscribe, and comment on it as well. This is Diplomatify. I am Dr. Ilango Karpanan, Geopolitics Decoded.